Thank you so much for having me, Joni. Thank you very much for, we have a Twitter channel, so I would love to put OPC everywhere, so I just do a selfie. We are a little bit late already, so I try to be quick. I will split my presentation in two parts. I give a brief kind of political overview what that is here. Heinrich Munz just talked about it a little bit. As you realize, it's a very strong movement in Germany. It's extremely strong. It is the way to digitize German society. There were many political thoughts about 10 years ago where to tackle and where to start that first. And in Germany, they all kind of decided that industry is the most relevant factor. So it goes into that. So, and in the second part, I will go directly into OPC UA and TSN, as announced and already discussed before. I will not go in on the bits and bytes level, for sure not. We're in a definition phase, but I will give some insights and also some critical points where we are still in the discussion. I would like to come back to that picture that we saw already before, and I would like to point out one thing. We have 400 participants in that Plattform Industrie 4.0, and that is kind of remarkable. In the rest of Europe, in Austria, for instance, we have a similar setup. However, this organization is also including then the bottom-up doing of these things, while this Plattform Industrie 4.0 really works top-down. They develop scenarios, they develop settings on how digitalization of German industry can take place. You had already several of those presentations in the morning. Mr. Hanke gave a very deep insight, for instance, in things that I worked here in the Working Group 1, which is Rami, that he just explained 2 hours ago. And I would like to point out one more time, you definitely, in a huge country like Germany, you have to have a societal movement if you want to bring something in this direction. And we are really learning on how to move people in open societies in those directions. There was another term in Germany before, it's called Energiewende, energy change. Now we have Industry 4.0. So the thing is, to cut it short, you hype something, but you do not give a definition. As soon as you give a definition, then people tell you why they do not have to participate. So hype something, but do not give a definition. 100 years ago, they just told you go to war and then you had to go. There were no alternatives. These days you have to do it like this. And the next term, as far as I hear, is already in preparation and will again be moved through the Western world. And that is a global thing. And I would like again to emphasize 400 participants coming from all parts of German industry. Is really showing how strong that movement is. We have to go digital. Digitalization is not an option. Mr. Hankel in the morning pointed that out with very clear words, going in sometimes into details to really prove also why this is relevant. We have to have a reference architecture. Not everyone can just do it. Interoperability is a must-have. It's not an option. We have to have this. And that's exactly why this group is so relevant. In 2015, end of 2015, there's a digital summit in Germany, and in this summit, it kind of came clear that it's not enough to have top-down. We have to validate. We have to check if these things, these scenarios really work in real life, in the markets we are addressing, for our problems that we are facing. In Germany, we have about 90% of all companies are small, medium enterprises, 3 million in total, roughly 200,000 large players. And so we decided we have to do something bottom up. And that must be related to small, medium enterprises, number one. And number two, serving them, addressing their requirements, their needs. The big ones anyway will go the digital path. The KUKA and also Bosch Rexroth just made it very clear they anyway do it. It's really relevant that all our suppliers also go on that track and follow. That is highly relevant. And that's exactly the idea behind Labs Network Industry 4.0. It was founded in 2015. It's an association, it's a legal entity, it's non-profit and pre-competitive. Non-profit and pre-competitive. I'm not here representing any company or whatever. I'm just acting according to the bylaws of that association. And we have two targets, two main ideas. One is more strategic goal, the other is an operational goal. And I would like to come back to those two targets after or during presentation of this slide. The content and the entire setting, how is digitalization impacting our industrial production, is really driven and done by the associations, the strong associations in Germany. The Machine Builder Association, the Electrical Association, the IT Association, and the engineering associations. And that is exactly the head. That's the mindset where everything is started, where the groups discuss the new concepts and future activities. It is orchestrated by this Plattform Industrie 4.0, but that needs two pillars, two columns, where they can lay on their results, where really things are executed and not just stick in PowerPoint presentations or white papers. And that is exactly why in 2015 these two things were founded, Labs Network. I'll go into that in depth, but also the Standardization Council, which is associated with our strategic goal. I'll also come back to that later on. Please remind this zoo of standardization organizations, 32 organizations that are somehow related to IoT products and somehow affecting our products of our companies that are working here. So we have to play that triangle, a mindset top-down, bottom-up, validating those concepts. Is it really the case? Do we have to tune, optimize something there? And then put the results into the standardization. And that brings me exactly to the strategic goal of Labs Network Industrie 4.0. We want to create traffic in this process. It's the only process that we have. Labs Network is highly agile. We have no hierarchy, we have no processes. Just one, this one. And this one together with the Standardization Council. That was already mentioned before this morning already. The idea is when we have use cases, which was also mentioned in the morning, we can take these results and create traffic, put them in a process to influence globally the standards affected or related to IoT. We are not really talking about functional safety here, which is still very relevant and necessary. We are not talking mainly about this. It could be that something like this in that area is there, fine for us, but that's not in the focus. We are talking about IoT-related technologies that are influencing standards. And OPC UA is one of those, highly in focus, and that's exactly what we can do. We can validate use cases using OPC UA and playing then the international game, which is IEEE, ISO, IEC, etc., etc. That this process is again organized by our associations. The associations are very relevant in Germany. They have the capacity and the expertise to be able to operate and to operationalize this process. What I will talk about as Labs Network Industrie 4.0 is to create lots of traffic here, to create use cases that are inputted here, and afterwards they end up here. To be able to do that in a nice and easy fashion, we have a website, and that website is as easy to use as when you apply for an insurance online. And the idea behind it is very comparable to invention disclosures and patents. When you have an invention disclosure, it's 2 or 3 pages. You have a drawing and a page of writing. It's an engineering text. 3 years later, you have a patent. That text, just from a text perspective, has nothing to do with the original text. There's nothing left. And exactly that translation has to take place also for standardization. Small, medium enterprises do not have a standardization expert. He reads some standards from top left to bottom right. He gets some training in some organizations where he goes on a Wednesday afternoon, but not on a text level. There's no way that small, medium enterprises with 30, 40, 50 employees are able to play on that level. So we have to have a translation from that engineering language to that standardization. That is exactly taking place in these associations. So these are the 2 columns that every company is sustaining its success on. patterns and standards. This is the thing to be able to sustain your products in the market and to develop them further. And now the operational goal, that can be described very easily by Tinder. The content is not love, but Industry 4.0, and we matchmake small, medium enterprises with test centers. We have roughly 100 in Germany. They are on the map. You can click them. You find them on the website of the Plattform Industrie 4.0 in Germany, also on our website for sure. And these labs are very different compared to other European countries. Let's say the Netherlands or also Austria, etc., France. The idea is most of our use cases are regional. So we have a regional setup, a learn factory, a lab, a living lab, where you just go as a small, medium enterprise, you come with your problem, and there's already an installation. There's a piece of software, there's a piece of hardware already installed. You can right away try it out, and then know that's the direction I will go. You will never create your solution there. It's a playing approach, very agile. And that's exactly what can take place in these locations. In other countries, you have a center for additive manufacturing. You have a center for logistics 4.0. You have a center for business models. Here in Germany, our experience is the radius of a use case is at most 30 kilometers, 40. Even if this is not the expert here, they are definitely not expert for digital business models, for sure not. But still, we have use cases there, and then they interconnect and get some support from others. We still do it there. We do not drive then to the expert in Hamburg or wherever. That's not our culture. It's not the way we do it. You could do it like this. Other European countries show it very successfully. We in Germany don't do it. There's no good or bad. It's just a statement. I would like to switch over now. I'm not sure about my time. Oh, yeah. To the testbed. In Germany, we have, funded by the German Minister of Economy, we have so-called competence centers 4.0. There are 13, I think, at the end of the year. I'm not totally sure about the number, but roughly. And these are operated like funded projects for 3 years. Each center has 5 million euros funding, and they have a shop floor. They have a certain development space, etc., where you just come and you bring your problem, you get some training, basic training about Industry 4.0, how you could do it, and then you get that option that you individualize per company, per problem, can work on this issue. And for the time-sensitive networking via OPC, and now I'll come to that point, we decided to go to Augsburg. There's several reasons for that. There's a nice shop floor, there's a complete installation available, there's well-trained personnel, we need a project manager for that, etc., etc. So that is all there. That's the reason why we went to that place, and that's exactly what we do. We work kind of on behalf of an order of the German Plattform Industrie 4.0, that working group that works with standards and reference architectures. They kind of founded a project scheme, put it this way, and one topic is really to come from controllers or machines all the way to the cloud. And we adopted exactly that topic and said we would like to found something that puts OPC in the center, where definitely TSN is worked on, and we would like to cooperate. These are the 3 paradigms we are facing. And the great thing in Augsburg is also that they have a truck. So the testbed will be installed in a truck. It can drive around the country. You can play with it right away. It is interoperable. So you just drive to a place and you try out interoperability. And that is exactly what I will show later on. It's a continuous plug fest. These are the members right now. 2 just left, 2 will come. It's kind of a very active and agile project. I did not really talk to any of those. They just came via the platform, the German platform, or via the LNI network, the labs network, and they just came to us and said, we'd like to participate. This is highly relevant. We all commit to OPC 100%, and we all commit that, or say that time-sensitive networking, deterministic real-time over cables is highly relevant for us, and that's the reason why we meet. That's the team, and I would like to really read those phrases here. We are a purely industrial testbed. We do not do audio or video or anything else. We do pure manufacturing and industrial use cases. And that's the absolute key. Normally or often test beds come from a technology. I have that great technology X. Let's start something, and afterwards we look for the market or for the use cases for applications. It's directly opposite with us. We come from a pipeline of use cases of small, medium enterprises that tell us, I require here 150 microseconds, here I require 3 milliseconds, here in this use case, specific use case, exactly here, I need 9 milliseconds. How can we handle that? I can handle it. It was already handled 20 years ago. Those applications are not new. It's not the invention of the wheel. We had these issues before in the past. Deterministic real-time, hard deterministic real-time. But it was handled with hardware wires or with using proprietary field bus technology and turning it crazy, cutting off many, many things, doing individual programming. You could run... now this time we want to use the Ethernet cable and not an own separate Ethernet cable. One Ethernet cable that also will have other traffic on it to reduce the wiring effort and in the end to have automatic interoperability, which also means for us that electricians that do all these switching cabinets, which is really expensive, will be reduced and reduced. That is the idea behind it. It is a continuous plug fest. You can really, I never had that also in my, I have already gray hairs, but in my entire professional life I never had that. All these companies come with a laptop or something on a neutral ground. It's really like a neutral floor. It's not a company floor, so it's completely neutral. You come there, you will come there, develop something, and you debug right away with the product of your competitor. Right away. Already while you develop your software, your firmware, your product. That is the idea behind it. It's a continuous plug fest, and then it is installed in a truck, and then it can move around and check interoperability. And yeah, for sure, it's a very, let's say, modern, I would even say European approach. It's this European perspective, this European view on influencing international standards. All those 32 standardization bodies I showed before are kind of competitive. Some of those earn money by that, etc., etc. We have to have a multi-vendor own view or own voice on this topic and not just leave it to some competing institutions, etc., etc. So I really think that this European perspective that Mr. Hankel also mentioned it before, we have to have a common international European, for me, first of all, European perspective on that topic and drive it from a European perspective. I think this is so super important and yeah, I cannot emphasize this often enough. Yeah, protected environment, and we have this, that's kind of unique, this direct access to IEEE via the Standardization Council. Although we are small, medium enterprises, we will not go via the classical. We have that Standardization Council, and they take back all these results directly for this IEEE 802.1. Use cases, and then the architecture follows. The TSN architecture follows. We first have the requirement of a small, medium enterprise, and then the architecture and the setup follows. Certainly, we cannot build a machining line 100 meter long. That would not be a demonstration level that you can. We have to see how we will do it mechanically then in the end, but that's really the idea behind it. We start, certainly controller-to-controller communication. I would like to give some ideas. A small, medium enterprise in that testbed just found out that for OPC UA pub-sub you need 2 megabytes of RAM and the computational power of a Samsung Galaxy S4 minimum. So then the other small, medium enterprise told me they also produce, in Germany we have small, medium enterprises with 28 employees that produce an own controller. Can you believe that? I didn't know it before. They are all in this testbed, in these logos that you saw before. And he said, that gets me too hot. I don't have that. That cost me €5 on top. Then I'm not competitive anymore. So we have to acknowledge that OPC UA is not in the last device, not now. In 10 years, yes. Not today, 2017, no. So we are talking about controller to controller. That is exactly what is realistic. All other is not realistic. And LNI is always trying to be realistic at the small, medium enterprises, listening to them. That is exactly how we operate. We are led by the associations and by the platform in the end, but we then operationalize it with the small, medium enterprises by exactly listening to them. The testbed is divided in 4 groups: robotics, controllers, and that's the key now, right now, network and architecture. And we have to really find out and find common ground. So right now we do not do any physical. We will not have a demonstrator at the Hannover Fair next year for the group 3, for TSN, for the architecture and networking. We are not able to have that. We have to discuss what are the right shapers, etc. we want to use and where we want to put emphasis. And just to give a rough idea what is time-sensitive networking, I would like to show that picture. It is basically that several different applications are running or operated on one network. And it can be, but it must not be in time sync with the devices. And by that, and that brings me already, we have to define classes. And that was just on Monday this week. We were able to, or we are working internationally together with the IIC on that, the IIC testbed in Erbach, that is somehow close to Frankfurt, that we define a common understanding like a reference architecture for TSN. We are right now at the level of having 6 classes. It might be that we come to 8 classes with good reasons, technical reasons, and we discuss it very intensive. So, and these applications here then can somehow be associated with these classes according to technical requirements. In time sync, the network in time sync with the devices or not, etc., etc. I don't want to. We have alarming. We have the entire network control, etc., etc. I don't want to go into details here. That has to be discussed. That's exactly what we do. So the testbed itself is focusing right now. That's group 3 with this OPC UA, TSN via OPC UA from a controller to a controller. That is really the topic. This is this things level that Mr. Munz just showed. There's certainly the edge level, where we have to go through all these firewalls, bidirectional. We do not want to have just read data. So if you go to some fairs and to some booths of some vendors, I always have the impression, okay, there's a sensor, and I want to upload the data in the cloud, full stop. That's definitely not sufficient. That is not Industry 4.0. Mr. Hankel made that already very clear in the morning, but you cannot repeat it often enough. Many, many groups are still living in that kind of understanding. So it's bidirectional. So we have to go through firewalls. There's an edge layer. We'll have the cloud layer, and then we have the apps, including the human-machine interface. And that is deterministic real-time. That is cable. That is cable. That is internet real-time. That is something different. That is really deterministic hard real-time where you get guarantees over that Ethernet cable. That is definitely not the case here when we operate to a cloud. So it must be a different transport protocol. And Mr. Munz just made it clear. That cannot be HTTPS. That has a huge header. That is completely unusable for that. It must be an own protocol. Right now they are talking about MQTT and AMQP. That is still under discussion. I will not comment on that because I am focusing on TSN, which is deterministic Ethernet-based real-time over OPC. Okay, one critical point I would still like to mention is the configuration of the network. Beside many others, what is the time sync we are going for? Is it the 1588? Is it the current AS, 802.1 AS? Will we all navigate, and that's what we are all working on, to AS-REF? I will not go into these details. I just mention it now in an oral way. I would like to point out one thing where I see a huge way to go and where we have to work very hard. In figure 99 in IEEE 802.1, we have one, two, three things. This is basically the IIC testbed that was already mentioned in the morning with a central, fully central configured network. The LNI testbed right now focuses for sure on this, more the decentralized ad hoc way. The reason behind that is the use cases of the small medium enterprises that I mentioned before. All those use cases, there's one, I just give one example, there's one about gluing, and it's the last drop of that glue. In automotive, that is kind of, but if you go to pharmaceutical, for instance, that's a different application field. There, this is highly relevant. And these glues change, so we want to be ad hoc interoperable. There's this per product, we have to put a different module in that machine line, in that 70-meter machine line. And if we want to update those things independently, we cannot always reconfigure the network entirely in a central way. It must be somehow ad hoc. It must be somehow decentralized. These are the reasonings. These use case reasonings are the reasonings why we right now focus on this. But we want to be completely interoperable. And I presented it one more time here. This is, oh, I'm sorry, that's in German. This is a switch, and we want to plug here a cable to any central configured network as soon as possible. And the as soon as possible can be answered. It is not that these are still pre-standards. They are not ready in IEEE 802. They are still under discussion. By the way, that meets the bylaws of Labs Network, because Labs Network in the bylaws shall validate and work closely with standards. Validate is step 6 of our process. So we work and fulfill the bylaws of our Labs Network Industry 4.0 Association. The point is the time sync. The IIC testbed right now focuses on AS, IEEE 802.1 AS. And in our testbed, in the Labs Network testbed, the classical, put it this way, 1588 time sync is right now in favor. So as soon as ASREF is available, and we will validate for ASREF, then the two testbeds can meet, because we have the same time sync. That is the key critical point right now. Yeah, and then we really I want to drive the truck close to Frankfurt, have a 100-meter long cable, I don't know how long, we will see where the parking lot is, and then plug here, exactly on that switch. And then we will do a plug fest and see how it works. The clear message, we will cooperate, not we want to, we cooperate. That is the message. However, we use different clock syncs due to very good reasons, very, very good reasons. Small, medium enterprises, all of them, work with 1588, do not want to go via AS, they will go directly to ASREF. This is a very severe good reason. So it is good that we have two. We cooperate, we completely synchronize. That is the message I would like to send. All right, I think my time is completely over. Someone must send me a signal. That will be the first use case. I put it this way. We will have two, I will not go into any details. We have to have two main switches. One is TSN on-off. You have to see a difference, put it this way. I just answered on that high level. And the other, when you create a data burst, to put other applications on that network. This is exactly where the proof of concept then will pop out, put it this way. Yeah, there's not just that testbed operated by Labs Network. There are many other use cases. At the end of the year, we will have roughly 40 use cases. This association is kind of still in a startup phase. That means that we do not focus. We will only go on that branch, only on that technology. The range is extremely wide. It is by intention. It is not that we are not able to focus or that we are crazy or something. It is by intention. We want to have a broad field what Industry 4.0 over all branches, over all technologies can mean. But again, I emphasize again, interoperability is always based on OPC UA because it has semantics and IT security. That is a clear statement for all use cases. And I would like to point one use case here. We validate RAMI. This is one, RAMI is not a software development kit. I just recently heard that in a presentation. RAMI is not a tool. It is not Microsoft Excel. RAMI is not a software. RAMI is a reference architecture. OPC UA is an architecture. It is not, this is not OPC UA. So we have to make that clear from always. So there's one implementation out. It comes from a university, from Aachen, that implemented exemplarily, RAMI, one part of that cube that Mr. Hankel just presented in the morning. I will not go into details again because my time's already over since 5 minutes. But we validate that. So what we really do is we accept that that is it now. That is the common ground. Everyone signed that. And now we use one implementation. It must not be a product implementation. We just validate it, try it out. Is that realistic? Can that take place or not? Is the interoperability here really taking place like this? And it was really cool. In Hannover Fair this year, we had a plug here, an electrical plug with 4 pins. And on our website, we just asked, come with your products. And then a guy from Phoenix Contact came with a sensor, with this movement sensor, and he just plugged in. And he had a Verwaltungsschale. Was heißt, Herr Hankel, Verwaltungsschale in English? An administration shell. And that device had no electronics, no computer, no storage. So it was just an ID. And then this ID was in a cloud. Basically, it was on a website, and we just our demonstrator here read out that ID with all the information behind it there, and then all of a sudden here in the not on the monitor, on the tablet, something popped up. I found a sensor that can rüttel und schüttel, whatever that is in English, a movement sensor. Put it this way, and what do you want to do with this? But at least there was imagine that, no electrical engineer, no mechanical engineer, and no software engineer was necessary to connect an unknown device to our machine in a useful way on a fair, live. It didn't make sense to have that sensor there, for which application, I agree. That was not the point. But imagine that someone comes along with, I was thinking later on, with a temperature sensor, we have a gearbox here, with M6. Then the administration shell knows M6, we screw that in, and all of a sudden we have temperature control in our demonstrator. Until now we do not have temperature control. That is kind of bringing it bottom up to what does that mean, what this platform strategically tries to set up. What does that then mean? What means interoperability? And imagine the cost saving that you do not have to bring a software engineer along that integrates a temperature sensor that costs minimum 1 workday. That's the story, the long story short. So the summary, industrial testbed, not anything else. Not building, not smart health, smart transport, smart city, industrial production testbed, full stop, nothing else. Plug and work, that is demanded by our small medium enterprises. We have a pipeline of 10 use cases. We will start only with 1. We cannot do 10 in parallel then. We first have to discuss now, find the right standards, then start with a use case, validate, influence the standards, afterwards go for the next. Otherwise the complexity in that testbed is too big. But it's good to have a serious project pipeline. That is exactly what I'm saying. But think big, start small. That's the only way you can survive in Industry 4.0 in a successful way. There are no obstacles that is due to that pre-competitive non-profit association, no member fees. We have direct access to that standardization, which is very cool. Many synergy effects to other use cases in the association. Stefan Hoppe said he would like to have a liaison with the OPC Foundation, which is mostly welcome. We don't have the need to do it within 2 days. I'm not talking about marketing or so. We want to do architecture and technology, OPCOA, TSN via OPCOA. Boom. Full stop. Nothing more. That's already big enough for us. And there's a link to the P&O and to the P&O is Profinet Nutzerorganisation. What is that in English? Whatever. And to the IIC, to the Industrial Internet Consortium, is given because the people are also in our testbed. I think 7 or 8 partners of the IIC are also in the LNI testbed. It's a natural link. You don't have to formalize something. Okay. Thank you very much. That was it.
Thank you very much. So, questions for Mr. Rohrmus? People are waiting for the lunch, I guess.
Yes. Fully understand, and we are really over the time, I tell you.
Yeah, we'll run over, but
oh, there's a question.
One question.
Just, yeah, I don't know if the question is relevant, but is it the end of device drivers? This
I hope so. I hope at any time it will be. Yeah. Yeah. But you have to have the information in a semantic way. Mr. Mund pointed that out in the morning. The VDMA, you have, let's say we have joining technology or plastic and rubber technology or whatever. These technologies do not have too much in common. They have some stuff in common. That's the header. I am a machine or I'm a device of producer X. I was built in 2017. I have already 10,000 operating hours, whatever, this information. And then we have to have branch or technology specific semantic descriptions to be then able. PDF is not digital. PDF is automatic. You read a PDF. Digitalization in industry means that the information is available in a way that you automatically can exchange and interact. So we have to have semantic descriptions. I am a temperature sensor. My range is from -80 to +200 degrees. I am already 3 years old, but I'm still in good shape. My last maintenance was 2 years ago. I'm okay so far. This is exactly, this way of speaking is necessary. You have that all in CAD models, in step files, but you have to annotate them. The technology behind this is called ontologies, but you have to have semantic descriptions. And then by that, if you want to say, that is then the device driver.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, more questions? Okay, thank you very much for the presentation and for everyone for being patient with the schedule, waiting for the lunch. I think we've had very great presentations here in the morning, so at least myself, I'm very glad that we ran over and we got all this information from these great gentlemen. I suggest that we start the next session at 1:15, so we have almost an hour for the lunch. I promised you can visit the trade fair, but remember you can always visit that after our event if we're not running over too much in the evening. Yeah, please, the next presentation will be from SAP, and I promise that that's at least as interesting as the previous ones. So we'll continue at 1:15.